Hello, everyone. It's a great pleasure to see so many of you here today. I'm Philip Lipsey. If you don't know me, I'm a professor here and the director of the Center for the Study of Global Japan. Thank you for joining us today for a talk by the Honorable Hideki Makihara titled Changing Geoeconomics in the Age of Trump, an Insider View from Japan. Before we begin, I would like to deliver a land acknowledgement. We wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. Today, this meeting place is still the home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we are very grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. And in that spirit, I would like to thank Sophie Burr-Klein, Rie Ayama, and the Monk School event staff for their administrative support of today's event. And with that, I'm absolutely delighted to welcome Mr. Makihara to University of Toronto. He is a Japanese politician and legal expert who served as the Minister of Justice in the first Ishiba administration in 2024. He entered politics in 2005 during the era of Prime Minister Koizumi, winning a seat in the House of Representatives for Saitama's 5th district. He's held numerous key positions within both the Liberal Democratic Party as well as the Japanese government, including Parliamentary Vice Minister of the Environment in 2013, Deputy Secretary General of the LDP in 2014, Director of the LDP Youth Division in 2015, Vice Minister of Health, Labor and Welfare in 2017, Chair of the House Representatives Committee on the Cabinet in 2018, and Vice Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry in 2019. And so as you can see, his expertise is wide-ranging. We advertised him as the former Minister of Justice, but he can speak on a whole range of topics relevant to Japanese domestic as well as foreign relations. Beyond politics, he founded and became CEO of Dream Platform in 2024. He earned his LLB from the University of Tokyo Faculty of Law and pursued an LLM at Georgetown University Law Center. Prior to becoming a politician, he was a licensed attorney in New York and worked in the Multilateral Trade System Department of the Trade Policy Bureau of the Ministry of Economy, Trade and Industry, or METI. He's kindly joined us today to share his expertise on the topic of changing geoeconomics in the age of Trump, but he's willing to discuss and answer questions regarding a wide range of topics. I'm sure you have many things that you'd like to hear his perspective and insights about. And so with that, first of all, please join me in welcoming Mr. Makihara. And I understand that we'll begin the presentation with a video. So let's see if we can get this to work.
And prosperity is nothing less than the seedbed for peace, involving countries in Asia Pacific whose backgrounds vary. The US and Japan must take the lead. We must take the lead to build a market, fair, dynamic, sustainable, and is also free from the arbitrary intentions of any nation. It was hope for the future. Ladies and gentlemen, the finest asset the US has to give to the world was hope. is hope. Will be and must always be hope. Distinguished representatives of the citizens of the United States, let us call the US-Japan alliance an alliance of hope. Let the two of us, America and Japan, join our hands together and do our best to make the world a much better place to live. Alliance of hope. Together, we can make difference. Thank you so much.
Hello, this is Hideki Makihara, and this is a part of the speech delivered by Prime Minister Abe on April 29, 2015. As the first Japanese Prime Minister to address a joint session of the US Congress, I would like Abe-san to repeat this speech in front of President Trump 2.0. And Abe-san once told me that President Trump often made phone calls to him on matters, to ask, what should I do on difficult matters to decide? So Abe-san was kind of an advisor. So I think, those phone calls are almost off the record, a private one. So, but it is very clear how strong influence Abe-san had on the President Trump. So if we look at the current situation, the world would likely be very different if Abe-san were still alive today. So anyway, currently both the United States and the world are moving in a totally opposite direction what Abe-san has called for in this video. So that's why I would like to start with this video. So anyway, today I would like to say three things at first. Then I'd like to get as many as questions. Thank you very much. And the first, Japanese political decision-making power has significantly weakened. Japan and the LDP, the Liberal Democratic Party, are still struggling to recover from the shock of Abe-san's death. Amid the growing uncertainty in both economy and security, Japan should be one of the leaders to maintain the value of liberty, democracy, and the rule-based order. However, as a result of the general election last October, even with the ruling coalition partner, New Komeito Party, LDP failed to secure a majority, resulting in the unprecedented situation of so-called hung parliament. Under this unknown situation, in order to pass the supplementary budget last year and the budget this year, Ishiba administration and the executives LDP, in particular the Secretary General Moriyama, had made a series of concessions which are unacceptable to some members of LDP. In addition, at the last election, Ishiba-san, just before the election, removed some candidates from the dual candidacy, or he revoked the official endorsement of some members, and those members are mainly belong to Abe faction. So now this, as you may know, since the last week, there has been, Ishiba-san has been a trouble with the problem that he distributed shohinken. It's the monetary certificate, the gift certificate, only available at the department store, like Mitsukoshi, Sogo. So that's not money at all. So this is a very, very tiny issue, I believe. But the problem is the member who gave this information to mass media and opposing party was the member of LDP. And those who, picked up this issue, this is a serious problem. And even requested Mr. Ishiba to resign from the office of, Prime Minister. Are LDP members. So it's an inside war. So this is now the serious problem, and it's getting more and more unclear. And nobody even knows Ishiba-san could remain his position until summer. So from this moment, the politics, I think, will be very in a difficult situation. The second, appearance of Trump 2.0. Before this speech, I visited Washington, D.C., and engaged in extensive discussions with many stakeholders. Everyone acknowledges that the things are now being only driven by President Trump's whims. Nobody knows what he will say next, nor can we be certain whether he will honor any agreements made. In fact, the United States itself is destroying the post-war peacekeeping system, including WTO, WHO, ICC, Paris Convention, USMCA, as you know. Those, international order has been destroyed. He has been imposing a unilateral force-based oppression on other countries. Japan, at this moment, has not prepared any retaliation measures against the US. What Japan did so far is to ask new Secretary of Commerce and the USTR Japanese goods not to be subject to tariff increases. So what Minister of Economy, Trade and Industry, Mr. Muto, he's very good of mine. He visited these ministers last week. And after the meetings, he admits there is no good result. So anyway, that's Japanese government should did so far. And Japanese people believe Japan would be an exception because President Trump understands the importance of US-Japan friendship. It's just hope or pray. And even if we face tariff measures, it is unlikely for Japan to take strong measures like Canada. However, the only exceptional situation would be the case where automobile industries face this target, is a target of tariff increase. Our economy and employment are so dependent on automobile sectors, including, and related to industries. And we have special feelings on automobile industries. So that would be the only exception. The third, with regard to security, Japan is located in one of the most unstable regions in the world, surrounded by China, North Korea, and Russia. And also, Taiwan is geographically crucial to Japan as it lies as its route. And nearly all ships carrying oil and natural gas pass through this area. Japan's decision to fundamentally strengthen its defense capabilities stems from a strong sense of crisis. And usually, when we introduce this kind of or strengthen the military power or increase of military power, the people response is very difficult, harsh, severe. As you may remember, when we enacted Peace and the Peace Security Act, there was a huge demonstration around the Diet building, and they say this act is a senso hoan, it's a war or accelerating act or something like that. It's not totally true. But this time, Mr. Prime Minister Kishida's decision to strengthen our defense force was not didn't face such kind of a harsh criticism. So I think the people now starting to understand how difficult the situation we are. And at the same time, Japan is enhancing economic security by enacting relevant legislation and appointing a minister in charge. The experience during the COVID-19 pandemic, when China halted mask exports and the mask became difficult to obtain across Japan. Highlighting this event, this experience highlighted the need to secure essential supplies domestically or ensure the government protection. In the ongoing diet session, discussions on active cyber defense will be on the table this week. So in these efforts, in addition to security operation, cooperation with like-minded nations is essential. We must advance the technological collaboration and the rule makings in the areas such as the semiconductors and the digital technologies. I strongly hope to make this key agenda item at this year's G7 summit hosted by Canada. There have never been a more critical time for cooperation between Canada and Japan, and also like-minded nations. Unfortunately, as I told you, Japan currently lacks the strength to play a leading role. I would like to conclude my remarks by expressing my hope that Canada, as a host of G7, will demonstrate a strong leadership, and as I understand, after the general election. Thank you very much.
So thank you so much, Mr. Makihara, for those excellent opening remarks. I have a few questions for you, and we can perhaps begin the conversation there, and then we'll open it up to the audience, which I'm sure is very enthusiastic about follow-up questions. You worked very closely with Prime Minister Abe, of course, and you had a kind of first row seat to how he governed and how he conducted foreign policy. And many people have written that Abe's relationship with Trump was the best in the world. John Bolton has written this in his memoirs, that Trump considered Abe to be his strongest foreign policy counterpart. And I'm curious to hear your view on why was Abe so successful in forming that relationship, as well as whether you think other politicians, including Ishiba, but future prime ministers as well, can replicate that success.
There was a story I heard from Mr. Abe directly. At the presidential election between Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump, everybody thought Miss Hillary Clinton will win the election. But we had Secretary General Suga. He starts politician career very from the land. So he had some instinct. Maybe Mr. Trump will win. And he consulted with Prime Minister Abe, and Abe agreed that. So because the Minister of Foreign Affairs people 100% believe Miss Hillary Clinton wins. So Suga and Abe-san try to find a connection by themselves to Mr. Trump. And there is one guy, one member for upper house in Japan, and he spent many times in New York. And he has a good friend, actually he's a lawyer in New York. And this friend has a strong connection with Mr. Kushner, I think the son-in-law of Mr. Trump. And at the first, Trump's administration, Mr. Kushner, played a big role. So through this, connections, Mr. Abe requested to the telephone number, which telephone number I should call for the congratulation when you win the election. And the Trump side, Abe-san was the first leader, a foreign leader, who tried to, contact with Trump and asked which telephone number. So, at first, Trump says, it is said that Trump, President Trump, said, is it real Abe? Abe is, the Prime Minister of Japan? Wow, it's incredible. And anyway, so Abe-san was the first foreign leader who called congratulations to President Trump. So from the beginning, Abe-san, I think hit the heart of President Trump. Then when the visit of Prime Minister Abe to President Trump, Obama at last timing, he requested President Trump for permission. He dropped by the New York to visit the elect President Trump in his at his apartment, and it's never happened, of course, because President Obama is president at that time still. So, but he visits President Trump before visiting Washington D.C. So, Trump welcomed him, and Abe-san made research a lot. So, what attracts President Trump most is golf. So, at the first visit to the President Trump at his apartment, the topic was only golf. And at the last moment, even Prime Minister Abe prepared the special gift, the special golf set. So Trump was, surprised and very pleased to this gift, and he, tried, and he said, "Okay, let's play golf." After I, took the office, and at the first visit to, Mr. Abe requested him, "Please, I will be the first foreign leader to visit you. Please promise me. Just one thing." And actually, President Trump kept his promise. So Mr. Abe was the first, foreign leader to visit him after he took the administration. And then, during the course of logistics, usually Japanese Prime Minister can only take, let's say, 30 minutes or one hour at most for the meeting with the President of the United States. So it was originally scheduled just 1 hour. But when the side, the people of, state, Department of State, US side, asked, President Trump said, "Where is golf?" And Abe-san heard from the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Japan, the US side asked whether you have intention to play golf. Abe-san said, "Oh, actually I told, he told me at the last moment, at the last visit, but it was true." And Abe-san said, "Yes." So the golf schedule was set. Next day of the visit to Washington, D.C., they moved to Florida and play golf. And at the first visit, they met at the White House. And Abe-san, told many things, prepared things. And Trump is like this. He is very unstable. And Abe, Shinzo, are you done? "Yeah, I'm done. What I would like to say. Okay, let's go to golf." And Abe-san said, "Yeah, no. My flight is not, maybe different from US. If the Prime Minister of Japan used flight, Safe Senyoki, it's a flight only airplane only for royal family and the Prime Minister. If he used this airplane for playing golf, that will be the huge scandal in Japan. So he booked the private, ordinary flight, like American airline, I don't know, but from New York, from Washington D.C. to Florida. So the scheduled flight is, let's say 4 hours ahead. So Trump said, Shinzo, you can use Air Force One with me. So, is it okay? Okay, because I say okay. And he calls the staff, and Shinzo will, go to Florida now with me by Air Force One. So Abe-san became the first prime minister who was on the board in Air Force One, and they played golf. Even inside of the airplane, Trump says, now it's 4 p.m., so we can play golf half round. And Abe-san at that time refused to do so because he requested to gather all CEOs of the US famous companies like Bill Gates or Steve Jobs. I don't know Steve Jobs, but Jeff Bezos or like that. So because he wanted to request them to invest in Japan. So first day, that's it. And the second day, whole round, they played golf. And whenever they met together either in Japan or US, they played golf. That becomes, why they are good friends. It's like a private, it's a friend.
Do you think that other Japanese politicians can form that kind of bond with Trump, or is it unique to Abe?
Actually, Abe faction, before Abe, the faction's leader was Koizumi. And before the Koizumi-san is Mori. Those two people are, I think, the teacher. Mori-san is, at the prime minister at 2000, he was so unpopular. But, I went the young leaders and the OB summit to the Stockholm, Sweden with him. So, and I was surprised how thorough research Mori-san made to give a present. So he knows everything. The leaders, the former leaders, they attended the meeting. So he gave a present, different present. And I know your grandson is like doing this. So I would like to present this, and this is a special gift because we think this is very important in Japan. And the next leader give, I know your wife is now doing this. So Abe-san ran, those kind of, komakana, it's a detailed care of people. And the Koizumi-san is, I think, the same. When at the first visit of Koizumi-san's visit to President Bush, George W. Bush, he never touched upon any substance. They just talked about a Western movie because Bush-san, comes from Texas. So Koizumi-san's topic was always on the music or the drawings. So it's the topic what the leader he is meeting with is most curious about. So I think that's the Abe-san's way of how to create the human relations with other leaders.
Thank you. I guess on a more broader question, I was in Washington recently as well, and it struck me that some experts of US policy towards Asia said that, all of the good ideas now are coming from Japan. That in fact, the Indo-Pacific strategy, the Quad, and that he was worried about the United States and its capacity to come up with new policy initiatives. And maybe he was exaggerating a little bit, but there was certainly a period under the Abe government when Japan was seen as an opinion leader and a source of new initiatives and ideas. And do you see that as continuing. You of course showed this video, that ends on a very hopeful message. So is there still a hopeful scenario in which Japan can help guide US policy in a positive direction, or work with partners like Canada to shift outcomes in a more favorable way? Do you see kind of a silver lining in all of this?
Okay. Unfortunately, Abe-san was special. So now, in order to guide other countries in the clear way, clear direction, like a FOIP or Quad or rule-based order, I think the strong leadership is required. But now we don't have such kind of strong leadership. So what we can do is like cooperation between the countries who share the same value, as I told you, like a liberty, freedom, and a rule-based order, and the democracy. So that must be the Canada, Australia, or India. So I think the strong tie of these countries is getting more and more important. And if we work together, I think US would change. I don't know, the President Trump 4 years term may be difficult, but we have we will have the future. So we don't need to just look at 4 years. We must see in the future.
Sure.
So
sure.
We must continue our effort.
Great. Well, with that, why don't we open the floor to questions? I know I'm sure there's many questions from the floor that we could. So, gentleman there in the middle. Yeah. Please wait for a mic.
So earlier in the lecture, you said that it was like highly unlikely Japan would take similar measures to Canada if they were to have their tariffs increased the way Canada was. Why do you think that is?
First, the Trump mentioned that reciprocal. If you take this high tariff, we take the same level of tariff. That's a Trump's way. And that Japanese tariff rate, average rate, is the lowest in the world. So first, even he mentioned such kind of reciprocity. Actually, we are not sorry about that because our tariff rate is very low. And the second, just that is not the Japanese way. We always, good to people. So not only, US against US, but also the other countries. We don't like retaliation measures.
Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? Yes, over there on the side.
I was thinking about, because in a number of Western countries, there have been grand coalitions in recent years. Germany had one till recently. The Republic of Ireland has one between Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael. And those generally seem to be, especially in times of crisis or concern, relatively useful. So I'm thinking, would it make sense for Ishiba-san to reach out to the Constitutional Democrats to form a grand coalition in the Diet, rather than trying to rely on the smaller parties like Komeito in order, especially because in the light of what's going on with Trump and with Xi Jinping and so forth, with Taiwan Strait and so on, maybe that might be a better thing for both parties to consider for the sake of Japan's getting through the next 5 or 10 years, rather than trying to play a minority government and try to basically ask the Constitutional Democrats for a confidence and supply motion. That maybe a more Zenkoku approach, between the two major parties might be a more stable solution for whoever's prime minister than trying to go it alone one way or the other. Thank you.
I hope that would be true. Politics is just politics. So now LDP, long-term ruling party, is losing its popularity. So from the side of opposing party, there is no incentive to cooperate with them, Because if election happens, oh, maybe it's a good chance for us to win the election. So I think only exceptional opportunity like a great East earthquake, this kind of a natural disaster happened, the great coalition might happen, even with the constitutional Democratic Party. But other than that, if the opposing party believe maybe we could win the election next time, and then maybe we would take the administration, so I could be a minister like that. So at that timing, opposing party tend not to be have a coalition with the LDP. That is my estimate.
Yes, front.
Sarah Payne from the U.S. Naval War College has said that the bromance between Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping will end eventually, and that Xi Jinping will pressure Russia to give up some of its resources in a moment of in its state of weakness because of the war in Ukraine. Given the tensions between Russia and Japan over the Kuril Islands, do you see Russia eventually weakening, and do you see this relationship between Russia and China deteriorating?
That's a difficult question. That depends on how long Putin lives, how long Xi Jinping lives. So because it seems those countries are now under the dictatorship. So dictatorship means the one guy means a lot. So yes, while Putin is alive and remain the leader, it seems difficult for Japan to recover the relation with Putin. So yes, four island issue has been there between Japan and Russia, but apart from that, now our position is clear, side with Ukraine. So it is said that Putin got really angry about Japanese attitude, and he said next will be Japan. So I don't know if it's true or not, but anyway, that's kind of threat against Japan. We feel that, and I don't know the relation between Xi Jinping and Putin. It seems not good because all the Western countries aside with Ukraine, so and China sees this is opportunity to import very cheap natural gas, and I think the market as well. So now they seem to create a good relation, but I don't know such good relation continues, because even at a Cold War, that Cold War is between the Russia side, that's the Soviet Union side, and the US side is a free country and social country. China's relation with Russia was terribly bad. So I never know their good relation continues.
If I could follow up on that question, when Prime Minister Abe was in power, when I talked to his foreign policy advisors, there was some sense that because China is the clearest threat to Japan, that Japan needed to bring Russia on side. And this was one of the reasons why Abe met Putin so many times and tried to reach a resolution on the Northern Islands issue. I think the war in Ukraine clearly changed the status quo.
Right.
But now that Trump is much closer to Russia, or at least he seems to be moving in that direction, do you see a potential change in the Japanese view on Russia and policy towards Russia as well? Or do you think that is not going to change?
Might be. We hope. I mean, Abe-san's effort to improve relations with Russia is, of course, based on the huge strategy. But part of that reason is, I think, the family. So his grandfather, Nobusuke Kishi, made an agreement with Russia to restore our foreign affairs. And in 1955, the treaty mentioned about the possibility of a return of Northern Ireland. Then his father, Shintaro Abe, was served Minister of Foreign Affairs for a long time, and he was so dedicated to restore the relation with Russia. And on the return from Russia, his father died. So Mr. Abe often told us he would like to succeed his father's intention. So that's why he met President Putin more than 50 times. They took a bath. I think that Abe-san is the only foreign leader who knows the naked style of Putin. Yeah. So, but the relation, we could not get the return for Northern Ireland. And even now the constitution, revised constitution of Russia says, no leader is allowed to return any territory of Russia. So it seems more difficult for us to get the four Northern Ireland back. So that issue remains, how to say, it's that huge, like a war between Japan and Russia.
Thank you. Michael.
You spoke of about the geostrategic context. I wonder if you'd share a thought or two about the overall social political stability within Japan more generally, the domestic circumstances. From afar, the society seems to be, all things considered, there's always these tragedies and these terrible events, for example. But overall, it seems to be a reasonably stable country, even as the price of rice and the price of sake and the price of lots of other things and the uncertainty about all kinds of uncertainties. What's your reading about the overall coherence, stability of domestic Japan beyond foreign relations?
It's a difficult question. We don't see Japanese society so stable if we are inside of Japan. So what is the answer? It's difficult. Anyway, what is happening in Japan relates to the change of the structure of people. I mean, now, okay, look at the 1980s. 80% of total population is below 60 years old. So we are young, and now, in the course of economic growth, we had a confidence. But now, the more than 30% of total population is over 65, and more than 10% of total population is over 80s. So it's the most old country in the world, and we have fewer and fewer children. I think in 1947, 2.7 million children were born. Now below 70, below 700,000. So it's almost 1/4. So the structure of population is totally different. So this affects a lot. So I don't think it's stable. The generation gap, so-called, is now getting more and more. So it's difficult for Japan to unify the country. So when we face the other countries' threat, actually, there were huge argument. And now we are accepting more and more foreign people. So I think traditionally, only 2 or 3% of total population is a foreign people. Now I think close to now 10%. So in that sense, our society is now changing. So much better than the US. It's, the Republican and the Democratic Party's conflict is huge. And we are not in such a situation, but still the gap or conflict is getting bigger and bigger.
I have a question about the Prime Minister's policy-making power. So one of the factors that affects like how good policies come about is the Prime Minister's ability to choose bureaucrats in the Prime Minister's office, the Kantekanyo. And I was wondering, like, Prime Minister Abe was very well known for his ability to choose these bureaucrats. And I was wondering what you think, like, is this unique to Prime Minister Abe, or do the politicians in LDP generally have the ability?
I think it's very unique to Mr. Abe. And Abe is the only exception who is elected as Prime Minister twice. So at the first, Mr. Abe's administration, he was not good not at handling the bureaucratic people. So there was always, there are always fightings inside of the cabinet office. And also there was a huge tension between the cabinet and the party. So he was not good at all the handling these things. The second term, he learned a lot. He studied a lot. He experienced a lot. So from the beginning, I think he has a vision how to handle the cabinet office, how to handle with the party, and how to get stronger power. So that makes a difference. So Ishiba-san, Kishida-san, they get the first time for them to get the power. So it is difficult for the people, usually you need like several years to get accustomed to the power or, to start handling very well. So that's the difference. So if Ishiba-san is just, or he got office at the 1st of October, so only 1, 2, 3, that's 5 months. So with 5 months, it's difficult for anybody to handle well. But I think that's advice is very important. I think that the bureaucracy people or advisors around him is very important. And I think, as far as I know, not good so far.
Thank you very much for a very interesting and informative presentation. My question is a rather delicate question. What is the extent of Japanese confidence in the US-Japan alliance and the nuclear umbrella extended deterrence? Trump obviously is somebody that doesn't believe in alliances, described alliances as American being taken advantage of. He's already complained that there's no reciprocal obligation in the US-Japan Security Treaty for Japan to protect the US. And Japan is pursuing its own new strike capability with new missiles. And there's talk about reconsideration of Japan becoming a nuclear power. It would be natural for Japan to be looking at this with long range of what does Japan do if the US is no longer reliable? What is the extent of the thinking going on as far as you know? Thank you.
As a politician, usually the best answer is I cannot answer to the hypothetical question. Even the question touches upon a very sensitive issue. Anyway,
But you're not a politician.
yeah. We never actually even imagine the US-Japan alliance is broken. So I think, we are pure enough to believe US-Japan alliance will continue forever. So, but sometimes the strong assertion is made, okay, whenever, for example, Mr. Trump says, you should the more burden for our base, or you should increase the the expenditure for the US people. Yeah, there is a strong opinion that now we should think about the possibility. We should protect our country by ourselves. But as to nuclear weapon, it is highly sensitive, because we are the country, the only country in the world in the history who hit the atomic bomb in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. And but in the history, there are many strong politicians who mentioned the possibility to have a nuclear power. Instead, just kept protected by US. Now it seems difficult because Nobel Prize went to the people who suffered from the atomic bomb and who has been has a strong accusation against the atomic bomb, get the Nobel Prize. So their now voice is so huge. So now it's difficult for any politician to mention about the possibility. So we cannot mention any possibility of that the US might withdraw from our country.
Thank you very much, and welcome to U of T, Yokoso. I enjoyed your presentation, especially the opening video. When Canadian and Japanese leaders get together, I don't think they talk about golf as much. Canadians and Japanese leaders get together over the last few decades. The subject probably is not golf so much as how do you deal with the United States? A question which is getting more and more difficult because nobody can read the mind of Donald Trump. If we piece together his rhetoric from the Canadian point of view, we see comments about 51st state, we see comments about Panama annexing Greenland, about borders being imaginary, not real borders, it's just a line that can be erased. It seems to suggest some sort of regional grouping for the United States, and his comments on other parts of the world seem to imply that just as the US should have a free hand in the Americas, Putin should have a free hand in Eastern Europe and Xi Jinping a free hand in Asia, according to some. Do you agree with that kind of move, which resembles more 19th century imperial conflict, not 20th century rules-based order? Is that too dire an assessment, or do you agree with elements of that? And if so, how does that affect Japan's relations, not only with the United States, but with the rest of Asia and possibly with Canada as well, as two countries that have much to lose if the US security umbrella is removed from our countries?
Yeah. Now, personally speaking, maybe all the Japanese people, I don't say all the Japanese people, I personally, my personal opinion, I feel the risk of World War III. So the situation is now, yeah, I feel the similarity of the 19th centuries rather than 20th centuries. So to avoid the war, we believe that rule-based order in the world is important. That Mr. Abe repeatedly said. That's applied to the ordinary society. If power means a lot, like a Yakuza type of people, who, have the strong power, just hit the, people, and you should follow, you should obey me. And if police is not there, if we call help, nobody try to not to look at that because those guys are so strong. So I think this applies to the world. If some strong guy hit the weak people, and if rule is not there, nobody can fix that situation. So yes, when Iraq invaded Kuwait, all the countries says you should not invade Kuwait. So United Nations consisted the coalition army, and that they kicked Iraq off the Kuwait. But why Russia invaded Ukraine? And if the concession agreement is for the ceasefire, it's based on the fact Russia can take some territories from Ukraine. Why is that allowed? Because Russia is too strong to kick it off from the Ukraine. So those kind of the power-based order will be dangerous. So I would like to persuade the US go back to this rule-based order, if possible. So at least, so that's why I said, Trump will continue just 4 years. So we need to look at after. So the Canada and Japan and the other countries always think about the future in the long term future.
We have a lot of hands now.
Thank you, Mr. Makihara, for your time and your perspective. A question for you. So given the very positive relationship that the Abe government and his administration had with the previous Trump administration, and the drastic shift that we see today in terms of the US administration, their attitude towards what were once, very strong allies. Using Canada as an example, where public sentiment towards what has been one of our strongest allies, has shifted very quickly, almost bordering on hostility because of the attitudes of the US and almost xenophobic attitude as well in their foreign policy. How has the public sentiment in Japan shifted towards the US, given that reality of today?
I think so far, our sentiment against the US has not changed at all. So we still remember President Trump, played golf. Every time he came to Japan, he enjoyed playing golf with Prime Minister Abe, and always laughing, always joking. So, still we have a good image of President Trump, I believe. So, yes, we know he mentioned about the Denmark or the Panama Canal, and he started, to increase tariffs, and he broke the USMCA. USMCA was originally created by President Trump. Originally the NAFTA, and he changed to the USMCA. So he broke the agreement by himself. We know that, but so far the damage is not against Japan. So the sentiment against Mr. Trump has not changed yet. So as I told you, I think sentiment will not change even if Trump started tariff increase against like steel, ships. It's okay. But if that measure touched upon the automobile, that will make, change the Japanese people's, feeling.
Hello, Mr. Makihara. Thank you for being here today. I want to ask a more speculative question about, I guess, domestic matters. So, God forbid, if Japan is unable to create stronger cooperations and trade with countries like Canada and Australia in the coming G7 summit, perhaps due to fear of American retaliation, what will the next step be? Will there be a domestic expansion of investments in non-automobile related industries? And if so, might like industrial automation be one of those industries?
Domestically? Domestically. Yes, I think that issue is not necessarily related to the possible Trump's measure. I think I told you, I think we fear we are so dependent on automobile sector. So we need another or other sectors which we can rely on. So in that sense, semiconductors or AI, we try to we subsidize a lot actually to develop these industries, and we hope these industries should be a core of our industry, and where we can rely on in terms of employment or the tax revenue or society, sustainability. So that is our long strategy.
In the back there, in the yellow sweater.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation. Can you comment on Japan's relations with Taiwan? And I ask because I've had a number of Taiwanese students in my class, in various classes, and to a person, they have very positive views of Japan. So much so that I recall I met the family of one of the students when they flew over. And so much so that one of the family members said, we view Japan as having built our country. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, I cannot tell the history for a long time here, but yes, the history of Taiwan is unique. I mean, Taiwan was part of Japan before World War II, but that started Meiji era, not so long ago. And when we took the Taiwan as a part of our territory, there was no country in the island. So there are some tribes, original tribes are there. So we asked even China Xing at that time, can we take this island as a part of territory? And they say yes. So we advanced to that island and built many roads and schools. So for the first time, they become like a country. So that is the basis of the good feeling of Taiwan people against Japan, I believe. So that's totally different from Korea. So where, there has been an original country, original language, but we conquered that. So that was very sad moment. But that's the basis of the difference of the feeling against Japan. So because they have good feelings for Japan, we have so good feeling for Taiwan. So I served as a director of youth division of LDP, and actually youth division of LDP is in charge of the foreign affairs with Taiwan. So I visited Taiwan so often, and I think that in LDP, the director of youth division is called as like a gate for the future leader. So like Abe-san or Aso-san, the many leaders wants to serve as a leader of the youth division. And that also creates the basis of our friendship feeling against against Taiwan.
All right, so unfortunately with that, we are at the end of our time. So thank you so much for the wide-ranging answers. Please join me in thanking. And that is it in terms of events at CSGJ for the academic year. Thank you, all of you, for participating in our events, and we look forward to seeing you next academic year. Thank you.